Week 5 of college football is in the books, and it's time to update our top 10 quarterback rankings for the 2025 NFL draft class. And guys, Jalen Milroe from Alabama has seen his stock rise after a big-time performance versus the Georgia Bulldogs. We're going to explain that and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And you know I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. DP, we finally had a good weekend of college football. We started this thing off, man, with Miami versus Virginia Tech and what they would call a barn burner, right? A last-second Hail Mary that was taken away from the Hokies, man. It was taken away from them. And then we had a good SEC showdown with Bama, Georgia. And then we had a lot of conference matchups. There were some really good games. The DP, we're going to do our classic thing, man. We're doing QB rankings. We're doing money makers and bag fumblers. And we're doing what? Game ball, man. You're getting an appearance from Coach K and you're getting an appearance from Coach DP hopping in the locker room, and we're passing out that game ball. But DP, I'm ready, man. Let's get into it.
Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. And guys, if you're new here, every single week, like Keith said, we update our top 10 QBs for the 2025 NFL Draft based off of typically how they played over the weekend. So let's get into it. At number 1, Cam Ward out of Miami stays at the top spot. At number 2, a new face in the new place, Jalen Milroe out of Alabama. At number 3, Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado. At number 4, Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. At number 5, Quinn Ewers out of Texas. At number 6, Carson Beck out of Georgia. At number 7, Miller Moss out of USC. At number 8, Jaxson Dart out of Ole Miss. At number 9, Curtis Rorick from Indiana. At number 10, Drew Aller from Penn State. Keith, let's start with Jalen Milroe, man. This was a guy that you highlighted, Keith, on Friday's show. You said he needed to make a statement. Keith, I felt like he made that statement against Georgia on Saturday night, Keith.
This was a classic moment for him, right? Like, you know how he had like the ESPN classic games? Like when you go to the Jalen Milroe script, right, and you're going through all of his career games at Alabama, this is a classic moment right here. And he played well. What else did I say, DP? We just need to embrace the fact that he's a dual threat quarterback. He ran the football well. I think he threw 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. And then I think he had another touchdown rushing, but over 100 yards, I believe. That was the statistics. But you know what he looked? He looked comfortable, DP. He was having fun. He was enjoying himself. He got to the end zone. He danced a little bit. He embraced the crowd. He embraced the 100,000. He embraced the big moment. And that's what you want to see. You want to see the physical abilities, right? But with a guy like Jalen Milroe, you want to start to turn the curve to where they look comfortable. They're like, hey, I know what's going to work, right? And then this is my show. I'm the king of this castle. And then you feel good about them, hey, being a quarterback that can be the face of a franchise in the NFL, right? Because they embraced this moment in college football. So I was thoroughly impressed, DP. I thought it was what I was going to see, and it was. And then from there, I was impressed with what he was able to do.
No, 100%. You know, I went, have the stats pulled up here. He was 27 of 33 passing, 374 passing yards, a QBR of 98.5, averaged over 11 yards per attempt, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. He had 16 carries, 117 yards, almost 7.5 yards per carry, and he actually had 2 rushing touchdowns. This young man finished the game against Georgia's defense with over 400, almost 500 total yards from scrimmage and 4 total touchdowns. And I tweeted out because it was at one moment, one of his runs, it felt like everybody on Georgia, who we know have highest of level of athletes, looked like they were moving at a totally slower speed and pace than Jalen Milroe. I think he cut back cross field on one of them, and he hit the sideline. And when he hit the sideline, I was like, okay, I think he's gone. And like you just saw him
Yeah, I know what you're
accelerate. And
talking
I
about. I
was
think it
like,
was up the right sideline. I know what you're talking about.
yes, yep, right up the right sideline. And I was like, yeah, this is we don't see things like this often. And I'm gonna be honest with you. Jalen Milroe right now looks like what Anthony Richardson probably would have looked like if he came back to school for one more year as a second-year starter, where that level of comfort, that development at the college level, and just be able to play within yourself, finding stuff like that, while he's doing that in the NFL level now, trying to find himself. Milroe was so impressive, man. But Keith, in the same game, got to talk about Carson Beck. And Carson Beck in this game, he was 27 of 50, 439 yards, about 9 yards per attempt, 3 passing touchdowns, three interceptions, right? And I think looking at this game, especially early,
and the fumble, DP, and he had the fumble.
I forgot the fumble loss. Like, so that's 4 turnovers to 3 touchdowns. Also, the final throw. I had a discussion with one of my guy, Kyron Samuels, on Twitter about it. That final throw, he threw the interception. You could tell that Colby Young was expecting the back shoulder fade, but it was just like miscommunication. Carson Beck throws it upfield, but it was underthrown. It was thrown inside leverage to the corner rather than throwing outside leverage to his receiver. And then also, I'm gonna tell you what, this to me, and don't get me wrong, he battled. So that's why we still have him at like top 7. Carson Beck battled, right? Like you're down, you're down. You force a comeback. You almost won the game. You had multiple turnovers, and you still kept throwing. But it was the questions I think about his arm are going to start raising up now, because that last interception was a far hash throw, and he couldn't get it there. And it's like, and then he had a couple like drive throws in the middle of the field. One where it's like the distance wasn't far, and the DB from Bama literally, like, the ball took too long to get there, and he put everything in it. So I think this game might highlight some of the red flags or flaws in Carson Beck's profile. I still think he's a first-round quarterback, but I've always said he was more of an athletic or more mobile Jared Goff to me.
Yeah, and I always went with what? Derek Carr, right? This is the other side of it, right? You're gonna get the highs and the lows mixed into this situation, and I agree. So at the beginning of the game, obviously, like, oh, this is bad, right? Like, he got to get dropped out of the top 10. This is not good. But then he battled back in the middle, DP, and like, okay, this guy has a little bit of moxie to him. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? He can grind, and then, like you said, at the end of the game, there were just a couple key turnovers, because I was surprised that they were even able to force the comeback based off of what he did. I think the fumble, right? The fumble was a key period of time. I think that was like maybe 8 minutes left in it was either opening into the half, or it was like 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, where it was a key turnover. It was like, man, that just cannot happen, right? Mm-hmm. But I'll say this, that I agree with you on that pass. And it was a couple of times. I think that was the second time that he threw that ball to Colby Young, I believe. But the first time, I agree with you. It's like he either got to put more air on it and make him a true jump ball wide receiver, or he has to, like you said, put that on the outside shoulder and make it a back shoulder fade. But that was like, you threw inside leverage to inside leverage corner, right? And you didn't put it up that high, because I feel like the ball still had a straighter trajectory on it versus throwing a moonshot, right? And be like, hey, 6'6", go get it. And then knowing your wide receiver, Colby Young is not that type of guy that he doesn't have that type of quick reactionary athleticism, right, to be able to quickly put a foot in the ground and work back to it. And I think he did that. I think he did it to Colby Young once before. And I get it. The guy is a tall wide receiver. You want to get it to him. But at the end of the day, it just didn't work. And then I know we about to transition.
You got to put in the error code, man. You got to put it where he can get it.
Where he can get it. Yep. You want to put it in the best position. If anything, you want to overthrow it, right? Like put it to the sideline and put it out of bounds. You don't want to leave that thing high and inside. You don't want to do that overall. But DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing. I know we have money makers and bag fumblers, and I'm pretty sure a couple quarterbacks gonna show up on that list, DP. So let's talk about which players made themselves some money and which guys lost themselves some money based off of Saturday's performance.
Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Because when you have a group of people, whether it's family or just a friend group going out to an event, trying to find seats that are consecutive can be a big hassle, guys. Not only do I love Gametime Picks, I also love the fact that Gametime show the views from all the seats in the venue, so you know what vantage point you will have if you decide to buy those tickets. They have lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection. Guys, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Money makers and bag fumblers. If you're new here, that means this is stock up, stock down. And Keith, I'm gonna go to the trenches first. In that Ole Miss Kentucky game, and which was a competitive game, by the way, back and forth type of affair. Deion Walker showed up, Keith. He showed up in a big way for that Kentucky defense. Two pressures converted into 2 sacks. And he was able to make a couple of run stops when they needed him to. But then the alignment versatility, whether it's playing 2-eye, he played some D-end, he was able to split double team. He had a rush attempt where the quick, like as we talked about in the summer, hand usage, the quickness, the quick twitch as a pass rusher is absolutely there. And it's like the way he was able to deconstruct that block quickly, get past that interior offensive lineman and get in the face of Jaxson Dart. He made himself some money because at the end of the day, when you're 6'5", 6'6", listed at 6'6", 340, 345, somewhere in there, right? When you're listed like that, and then people see, like, at the end of the day, it's the hop off the bus, type of treatment. You get to the combine, and those GMs get to see you in person, walk in, and it's like, oh, yeah, he's a legit 6'5". He's a legit 335, 345. And then he tests well, things like that. He's going to solidify himself as a first-round pick, more than likely. And when you have this type of pass rush repertoire, we've been waiting for this type of game from him, Keith. This is his first game with sacks. He had no sacks the entire season up until this point. If anybody made him some money and took the spotlight, and this was a game, SEC play, right? Conference play, and you showed up and showed out in this game, big time performance from Deion Walker. He needed this. His draft stock needed this, and that defense needed him to make these type of plays.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, DP. Like and we talked about him multiple times on this podcast, right? Of like, hey, your draft stock is kind of was trending downwards, right? Because the thing that people hang their hat on was your ability to sack the quarterback and affect the passer, right? And you're not doing that. So this was a big time game. It resulted in a win, and you can kind of see that he had a large part in the reason why they won, right? Being that disruptive and operating in Spurs. DP, I'm gonna go with Ashton Genty, man. And Ashton Genty had a hell of a day toting the rock, man. I'm trying to pull up the stats right now. I believe it was over 200 yards, right? And watching the game, DP, it was once again because I watched the game against when they played Oregon, right? And I'm like, this guy is single-handedly taking over this game. And then now I'm sitting there watching him again. I'm like, once again, this guy is single-handedly taking over this game. He had 26 carries for 259 yards. That's basically a 10 yards per carry average and 4 touchdowns, DP. I told you, when this guy gets rolling, and it's, I don't know what he's going to run. I don't know what he's going to measure in. It's his ability to absorb contact and keep going. I don't get it. Like, you talk about the pinball situation, it's exactly that. Defenders just bounce off of him, and it's like he just absorbs it, keeps balance, and then keep moving forward. And it's like, how do you keep doing this? And it was an impressive thing. So I think that this is where we have to get to, or we're on the road to, is that he's probably going to be an entrenched first rounder at this moment, right? You're talking about like the top 30 prospects that's playing good football. Like he's entrenched in there. Like he's probably closer to 20 than what he is 30, right? And so you're talking about those teams picked in that mix. And hey, can he be the Dalvin Cook when Dalvin Cook first got with the Minnesota Vikings, right? Like just be one of those early players that, like, man, you can potentially run an offense through them, right? Or they can be a focal point of an offense lead. And I think that's where I am evaluating him now. Like, it's past the, okay, he's talented and he has short area quickness. It's like, no, like, okay, what is the ceiling for this guy, right? Like, what is the ceiling for him and a franchise? Because he, like, that was just is impressive performance, DP, to go 26 carries and be at 10 yards per carry average. I mean, you touch almost 300 yards and you still have 4 touchdowns.
what he was able to do, what he's been able to do has just been outstanding. And when you talk about the Heisman, which we were going to do it last week, but I think this after this weekend, perfect time to talk about that Heisman with 2025 draft prospects. We'll do that as a bonus episode this week. He's one of those guys, and we'll talk about him in that light. But what he's been able to do, man, the contact balance is. I don't think I've seen it like this in a while, where it's like truly you hit him on the side, and it's like it doesn't phase him. Like, you know what I mean? You know what? His contact balance reminds me a lot of Alvin Kamara. And Alvin Kamara does immense work in the offseason. Whereas, like, I've watched his workouts. I'm like, yeah, this is why he's like this. You know what I mean? Like, this is why he's so good. Because he puts that work in it. And Genty having the dense frame that he has as well. Then the foot quickness, the ability to string together cuts and movements and work through and sift through the line of scrimmage, vision and patience. Like it's going to test those theories if he comes in at true 5'8", 5'9", like 210 pounds. There are going to be some teams where it's like, yeah, do we select him round one? You know what I mean? He's that good that he's going to test the laws for some of these teams, Keith. And I'm just excited to see, just how this season truly unfolds for him. Because real quick, I want to look at Boise State's schedule. Do you have a stronger competition? No, you don't.
Yeah.
After Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon was the last one.
Utah State, Hawaii, UNLV. UNLV could be a team that's going to stress them offensively, but defensively, I'm not as concerned. But I will say this: I'm talking about him in a second. Jalen Catalon, like that's a guy. It's getting the interaction between him and Ashton Genty.
Collisions. Oh man.
Yes, I need to see it. Right, San Diego State, Nevada, San Jose, Wyoming, and Oregon State. Yeah, he's probably going to put up like the numbers he's about to put up. Man, I'm just saying, like he's been so impressive, Keith. And then that's the other guy. Like I talked about, Jalen Catalon, a guy that made himself some money. Keith, this young man on the season has 4 interceptions, 5'11", 205, and he's coming off of a game against Fresno State.
Yep.
Keith, 10 tackles, another interception, a pass breakup. He's been making plays, and it feels like they're letting him just play safety, play defensive back, and not have to be just a heavy hitter, tone setter. He's showing, because the play he made, I watched it live. I didn't think he got in. Like, I didn't think he got a foot down. Like, you know what I mean? But it was that impressive of an interception on the sideline, battling at the catch point. So got to give love to Jalen Catalon, safety from UNLV. Yeah, him and Ashton Genty, I need that head-on collision. I need that Mack truck collision on the interstate one-on-one, man, because those are 2 physical and aggressive plays. But what goes up must come down. And for me, I talked about him on Friday, Keith, and I said, listen, you got to make a statement. I need to see you go out here and make the statement. Jaxson Dart, and I know some people look at the box score like DP was 18 to 27, 261 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. That's true. He only had 1 receiver. We only had 2, technically, over 20 yards receiving. And one of them was Trey Harris, who had 11 for 176. And the other was Caden Prescorn, who made a great play on the YOLO ball that he threw 40 yards down the field. I watched Jaxson Dart in this game struggle with pressure. I watched when he was forced into true drop back sets. He did not look comfortable. He didn't process information well. He was struggling against the pressure that Kentucky's D-line was able to get. That when they were able to box him in and contain that QB delayed draw they like to run, as a passer, as a draft prospect, I didn't see a guy that I'm saying, okay, this is a first-round talent. I like his arm talent. I like his strength and the running ability, the power run game. And then late in the game, Kentucky goes down and scores, Keith, and you get the ball back, and you don't get points.
Yeah.
Right? You basically lose the game on your final drive, and when you're projected to be a top 5 pick, people got you in the QB1 discussion. You kind of got to, cash in on those situations.
Yeah, no, 100% he needs to make that happen, DP. And what happened Saturday was the concerns, right? When we always talk about the concerns portion of Jaxson Dart, and that's what happened. And it's that, like you said, you can't look at the box score and the stat sheet, right? It's more so when you're drafting these guys that high, right, is do you have the gotta have it moments, right? And even you can go as far as talking about top 10 picks, right? CJ Stroud had that moment, right?
Mhm.
Bryce Young, and people can say what they want about how he played. He had
He had
moments, right?
multiple.
He had multiple moments in college football. We can continue to go back through first rounders where we was like, nah, remember, like Joe Burrow had plenty of moments, right?
Trevor Lawrence, Tua,
Trevor
all of them
Lawrence had moments. Tua had moments, right? Where we said, like, nah, they got clutch. You know what I'm saying? They got clutch stuff in them. And
I don't
I
know if you
think,
heard real quick, not to cut you off. I don't know if you heard what Lane said. Lane was like, they asked him about, I think after the game, about the game, he was like, our schedule didn't prepare us for this. Well,
100%. And
no
that's why
joke.
I kept highlighting this game, because I'm like, this is the first time where it's going to be evenly matched, right? And what happens is that mentally you think that you're in a good spot because y'all steamrolling everybody. Well, guess what? You're playing lower level competition, right? So
Yeah.
all you could be doing is you're buying fool's gold into yourself, right? And you think that you're at a certain point as far as how we're operating, and you're really not. And like the old Mike Tyson quote, right? Everybody got a plan until you got punched in the mouth. That was the first time y'all got hit in the mouth, and then y'all, instead of fighting back, y'all was sitting there holding your mouth. Like, no, you in a fight now. You gotta rock and roll and be prepared with DP. I'm ready to get in the locker room, man. I'm ready to hand out some game balls. So coming up next, man, we are handing out game balls, Coach K, Coach DP, and we're talking about who are the top performers from this weekend in college football.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get that urge and that hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you place your bets. When you talk about placing bets, guys, you can get in on live Super Bowl betting odds that are going to change as the season continues and progresses. Outright betting for the Super Bowl right now. The Kansas City Chiefs are the favorites at plus 500, but then you have a team like the Seattle Seahawks at plus 3,000. You can get in on the action right now, guys. Okay? You'll get started with $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Again, when you place your first $5 bet, you'll get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. So all you need to do is go to FanDuel.com and get in on the action. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Coach DP and Coach K are getting ready to walk into the locker room and hand out their game balls of the week, Keith. I didn't split. Last week I split it 3 different ways. I didn't do that this week, Keith.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little bit more strategic. I was like, I'm holding on one guy. Running back for the Duke Blue Devils, Star Thomas, 6 foot even, 210 pounds. Keith, he carried against North Carolina. They were up. I think they were down 20 points in this game. Him and Malik Murphy. Malik Murphy was able to get something going, get the ball down the field. But Star Thomas had 31 carries, 182 yards rushing. He had a rushing touchdown, but also, I believe in this game, he also had a 29-yard receiving touchdown as well. And then the fourth quarter, I believe he had 78 rushing yards in the fourth quarter to help lead them back to this victory. Again, down almost basically three scores, and to still be able to power and engineer your team. Your quarterback's been carrying the load the whole time as a new transfer, and to watch while he was struggling, they had somebody else to get the ball to and say, carry us to victory. And for me, Star Thomas, man, this young man was impressive. That's his 3rd consecutive 100+ yard rushing game on the season. He's 3 for 3 right now since week 3. I think hit for him, and I think he actually is draft eligible. This should be his like true senior year, but he probably has another year if he wanted to go back one more year and everything. But definitely a talented running back that showcased both sides. Just a full skill set. I can catch the ball in the backfield, and I can be a volume running back. 6 foot 210. Got to give him my game ball. They would not have won that game without him.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And that's, like you said, another running back, right, to invoke to this running back conversation. At this point, he probably should just wait the next year, right? And hopefully next year's class is not as talented as this year's class. This year is crazy. DP, I gotta travel to a couple different places, right? And listen, people gonna say, you're going after the big names, the big brands. I don't care. First of all, I'm going with Jalen Milroe, DP. I'm like, and you know what won me? And it's multiple different things that won me over. It was the play, but like I said, it was once he got to the end zone, dancing, having a good time, like it looked like Bryant Denny Stadium, Nick Saban Field was his
Yeah.
place, right? It looked like I own the spot. Like in what you seen was just him being so comfortable. And that's why I say just giving him the game ball. And in that moment, DP, that's why it was so important. You sat there and you said, wait, is Alabama the best team in the country? Right? Like, and that's how he played. He played to make you wonder, like, nah, they turned the corner. Like those questions, I think they found a rhythm and a routine with Jalen Milroe, right? To make you believe, like, okay, who do we have at the top? Georgia was one, Texas was another. You got to put Bama in there, right? And when you have
Yeah,
those
you
type
have
of
to.
performances, I'm like, you know what? Give him the game ball, man, because he played his butt off. He had a hell of a game, quick start. Like I said, was precise. Obviously, he had the one interception, but I just thought he played well. And then the next one, DP, we have to wait at least another year, right, for this guy to hit the draft class. But I'm gonna go ahead and get some hype going, man. Mr. Arch Manning. I'm gonna talk about him. First SEC action, DP. I believe he went 26 of 31. I believe, yeah, 26 of 31, 324 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Right. First SEC action, stepping in. Texas is ranked as the #1 team by a lot of the top polls and things like that. And then you're going this SEC action, and you have to keep this thing on pace, right? And you have to keep it up to par. So that's why I want to give him the game ball. Like, hey, that's a lot of pressure, right? The name on the back of your jersey. Everybody's excited to you. You're replacing a guy, Quinn Ewers, right? Who some people believe Quinn Ewers is QB1. You have to steady this ship. Everybody believes that Texas is the best team in the country, and you come in there first SEC action. Because if you throw 2-3 interceptions, DP, you can change the game, right? And then Mississippi State feels like they're in it, and then somehow they squeak away with a win. And it's like, man, but for him to go out there, put on a good performance, he was highly efficient with the football. So that's my two guys, man. Arch Manning, Jalen Milroe, that's the game balls.
No, and they both deserve it, Keith. They both deserve it, and I think they said it on ESPN. I was watching the college football final show. There's listen, Texas has the best quarterback situation in college football, and it's not debatable. You could go from Quinn Ewers, who has 8 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, to I think with Arch, I think he's at 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Like that type of quarterback play is uncommon, right? I always say this, one of those Big Ten teams, if I'm Iowa, I'm trying to, how much money can we muster up to get Arch Manning over here? What do we got to do right now? That type of situation. We see it worked out for Duke. Duke got one of their quarterbacks, brought him into their fold, and now he's playing good ball, and I think they either are undefeated, only have 1 loss. So like that situation, man, Arch Manning, and he talked about, I just need to settle down, not chase the big plays too much and everything. And you can see that him and Quinn's relationship is strong. And Quinn, I think their goal is to have Quinn back for that Oklahoma game, right? That Red River shootout or what Red River rivalry, whatever you call it. Yep. So both in the SEC and everything, and then Oklahoma actually looked better on this past weekend with the new quarterback change, Keith. So yeah, Arch, and of course Jalen, as we talked about in the beginning of the show, Jalen Milroe just. I think I called him when we did our first QB rankings, Keith, before the season. I said he was the X factor of this class. If he takes the step that we were hoping to see, like all the other quarterbacks have to beware of him. Like this is the guy that can chase you down and leapfrog you for that QB1 spot. Cam Ward, that QB1 spot isn't safe. Shador, that QB1-2 spot that people have you in, that QB1 spot isn't safe if Jalen Milroe continues to play like this. Because he's the type of guy with his tools that teams are looking for nowadays. And Keith, I want to say this real quick too. I appreciate the growth with him. We always said he was such a good deep ball thrower. Now he's working the intermediate and the short intermediate game. And that's where you become dangerous. When you start working the quick game, you make quick decisions, and they can't fool you post-snap, and you can get the ball out without having to move. That's where you become the ultimate weapon. And that's what Jalen Milroe looks like he's headed towards.
Yep, I agree 100%. That's why we had to start talking about him. Hey, is this guy really QB1? What offenses in the NFL could he fit in? What play callers do we want him with? What schemes do we want to see him in certain situations? But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Listen, I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all can talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. We got to talk about some of these pass catchers, guys. Trey Harris had a big week. Travis Hunter continues to make the conversation difficult with his draft profile. So we're going to talk about those wide receivers and rank them at the top of tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.